So I have this strange memory, but it's a good memory. When I lived in Florida, we lived in Florida for about a year. Growing up, my dad always told me, if I give you my word, it's going to happen, right? That's what he said. If I give you my word, it's going to happen. But he had to say those words like, I give you my word, we'll do this. If he didn't say that, then it didn't count as much. If I give you my word, we'll do this. So I remember there's a day, then the weekend, Shrek, the first Shrek, anybody? Yeah, the first Shrek came out, and I'm a little kid, and I'm like, I totally want to go watch Shrek. I'd like, come on, what else do you want in life as a kid in Florida? I want to go watch Shrek, and I told my dad, and my dad was super busy with lots of things, but he says, listen, I give you my word, we're going to go tomorrow. And I said, ching. I give you my word, we're going to go tomorrow. So what happens tomorrow? Hey, Dad, where are we going? Everything kind of went crazy that day. It was one of those days where just tons of stuff came up, phone calls, ministry things, whatever, you name it. It was this crazy day, and I was like, oh my goodness, what's happening? And so I started getting mad, and I said, my chances are going down and down and down and down. So I finally interrupted, and I said, hey, listen, I know you're dealing with a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm pretty sure it was some serious stuff, but I said, I know you're dealing with a bunch of stuff, but you gave me your word that we'll be going to Shrek tonight. And I just told him. And he stopped everything, and he said, I gave you my word, we're going to Shrek tonight. So he took me to go watch Shrek at like 10 o'clock at night. But we watched Shrek, and it just instilled in me, if my dad gave me his word, it would happen. Even if the situation didn't look like it was going to happen, but you gave me your word. Yeah, but then this came up, but then this came up. No, but my dad gave me his word, and it's going to happen. And I've banked on that, and it's been reliable. So I know if he gives me his word, it's going to happen. I may have no evidence of it, but boy, his word was enough when I was a kid. And so I wonder, maybe you've grown up with family like that and parents like that, somebody like that where they tell you, maybe it's a friend, I give you my word, I'll be at your party. They'll be there. Those kind of people. So we grow up with that kind of trust, and then I wonder what happens when we get older as Christians, where we struggle to take God at his word. When did that not become enough? And we can't take God at his word, which is Jesus. We don't take him at his word, but we take him at his miracles. We take him at his provision. We take him at his evidence. When did we stop trusting like a child that I take my dad's word is enough? If he said it, boy, it's going to happen, no matter what. And I'm talking to me here too, okay? I've been doing this for a while too, and I know what it's like to take him at his word. And so the story that we're going to talk about is about an unnamed man in the Bible. And I love stories about unnamed people because that means it's me, that means it's you, that means it's all of us, fill in the blank. And so we're going to be talking about a story that doesn't get much attention, about an unnamed man in the Bible who really does not get a lot of attention, but it's found in John 4, starting in verse 46. All right? And this is a government official, a royal official, just to kind of set you up a character. All right? So here we go. John 4, 46 through 47. We have the story of Jesus. And Jesus entered the village of Cana of Galilee, where he had transformed water into wine. And there was a government official in Capernaum who had a son who was very sick and dying. When he heard that Jesus had left Judea and was staying in Cana of Galilee, he decided to make the journey to Cana. All right, so there's a lot of words and names going on, but just know that Jesus is entering Cana. This official's from Capernaum, okay? That's all you kind of got to know right now. So there's an official all the way in Capernaum. Jesus is coming to Cana, and he hears about it, and he decides to make the journey to Cana. So what do we know about this person? He's an unnamed person, but we can kind of get some context clues about this guy, all right? So some translations say he's an official for the king. We know he has a family, as we'll see later on in the story, and he's got many servants. He's obviously really wealthy because later on they'll mention his servants. So this guy's he's kind of wealthy. He's influential. He's got a place of authority. He's, probably well known in his town where he's at. And he's this kind of government official. Now, no doubt he would know about Jesus too. All right, remember, he's going back to the place where Jesus turned water into wine. The Bible happens to mention it, and I'm sure everybody there was excited when he came back bringing jugs of water to him. Oh, it's you. I've got water. Here, Jesus. So they had heard about it. Now, a few chapters before this, most likely he was at Passover when Jesus at Passover. Like a good Jew, he would have been there during the celebration. And at that celebration is the time where Jesus created a whip, started flipping tables, let loose the animals, created quite a scene. So imagine you're there at the festival and there's this crazy guy flipping tables and letting loose all the animals. We don't know who he's at. His name is Jesus. We don't really know who he is yet. He would have probably been there and probably would have heard about it. Oh yeah, there's that crazy guy. Okay, I've heard about him. But not only did Jesus do all of that stuff, it also says in John 2:23, it's not going to be up here, I'll read it for you. It says, while Jesus was at the Passover feast, the same feast, it says the number of his followers began to grow, and many gave their allegiance to him, listen, because of all the miraculous signs that they had seen him doing. So that part gets a lot of attention, that he was flipping tables and doing all that stuff, but he was also doing miracles during that feast. And in fact, he was starting to get followers during that time. So no doubt, if you're there and you're hearing, this guy's healing people, the same guy who did that is also doing all these miracles. The point of this is that this unnamed official would have known about Jesus. Word would have traveled, he would have heard him. Maybe he was there when the things went down. Maybe he even saw him do it. So he was familiar with it. He had heard the stories, maybe he'd seen him himself. But of the growing followers, this guy was definitely not one of them. And we know this because, spoiler alert, okay? In John 4:53, this is kind of the end of the story, but you could kind of see it coming. It says, from that day forward, the man, the official, and all of his family and servants believed. So what does that tell us? At this time, when he decides to go see Jesus, him, his family, and all of his servants, what? Didn't believe, right? So it kind of gives us this clue. It says at the end, and now from that day forward they all believed, that means from that day before, they didn't believe in him. All right? That's significant. They didn't believe in him. So here we kind of got a picture of this guy, what he's like. Wealthy guy. He knows about Jesus, but obviously, he's not a believer of him. Neither is his family. They probably think he's some wacko. Who knows? Like lots of other people did, right? And so that makes it more extraordinary that this guy, while his son is dying, like let's make it real world here. While the son is dying, decides to leave from his city to another city. Now, these cities are 20 miles away, which is about an 8-hour journey. He doesn't believe in him. We know that. And he goes on an 8-hour journey away from his dying son to go see a man he had heard about but didn't believe in. How desperate do you have to be to do that? I mean, imagine if that was you for a second. Be the unnamed parent in that moment. How hard would it be just to leave your son that is literally on the deathbed? I mean, would any of us do that's tough. I mean, how did that conversation go with his wife? Sweetheart, I have to leave. How did that conversation go with his son? Dad, where are you going? I need to go see the man named Jesus. You mean the one who turned water into wine? You mean the guy who's flipping tables? You mean the guy who was doing all those things that we don't believe in? That guy you're going to go see? I mean, what was that conversation like? I have to leave. What are you talking about? You have to leave. Go get the doctor. Go get this guy. Go get this guy. How desperate was he as a father to say, I need to go ride 8 hours away to go see a man I don't believe in because there's a chance that this man I don't believe in could do something I can't believe. Think about that. This is a parent. This isn't just an unnamed guy. This is a parent. And the desperation. Now, I consider that desperation faith. Right? If he didn't have faith in Jesus, why would he go? So here's a man who didn't believe in Jesus, have enough faith to go to Jesus when the things he cared about were on the line. And that's the thing. Another translation says his son's life being on the line. You know, and I wonder what happens to us when the things that we care about in life are on the line. The people we care about, the job we care about, the future that we care about so much, our finances we care about so much. When those things are on the line, how do we respond? When it's dying, do we sit back and say, well, that's it, I'm not going to leave? Do we have enough faith in those moments to ask for something from someone maybe we don't really believe enough in. Maybe we don't really believe Jesus can help me with my finances. Maybe we really don't believe he can heal. Maybe we really don't believe Jesus can do these things. Maybe I've been at the festivals and the conferences and I've heard the stories of him and I've seen things, I've heard things, but I don't really believe in him. My family doesn't believe in the power of Jesus. But I wonder, when things are on the line in our lives, how do we respond? What's the conversation in our house? What do we do about this? This is on the line. How do we do it? What do we do? Are we the ones who say, I need to find Jesus. I need to go to Jesus. Even if he's super far away, 8 miles, I need to do whatever it takes to get to him. And we'd be surprised with that kind of faith, what can happen? I mean, he didn't believe in him, but he had enough faith. And we'll see what Jesus does. And Jesus is so good and faithful, but that he does something really amazing for this man. So let's continue the story. John 4, and starting in verse 47. So when he heard that Jesus had come from Judea to Galilee, he went and begged Jesus to come to Capernaum and heal his son, who was about to die. Again, look at these words. He begged Jesus. If your son was dying, would you not beg Jesus? It would be, oh, Father, please, Lord. He's on his deathbed. Would he not be begging? Again, be the unnamed parent in this moment. He was begging. I could imagine the scene, tears in his eyes, so worried and anxious, and all of these things coming to Jesus, interrupting, because no doubt Jesus was with people, bursting through and saying, listen, and begging Jesus for his son. And he asked him to come to Capernaum to heal his son, who was, about to die. Desperate. I mean, paint the picture, right? Desperate he is. And Jesus asked him, will you never believe in me unless you see miraculous signs and wonders? And yet the official pleaded again, Lord, please come now before my little boy dies. I mean, that's a dad. Listen to those the affectionate words. My little boy, come with me before my little boy dies. I need you to come with me, my little boy. And then Jesus tells him, go back home, your son will live. And so the man took Jesus at his word and departed. Now, imagine you're this man. Continue with that, all right? You go to Jesus like everybody says to do. And you get to him and you beg him. And then you beg him again. Because he brings up something, you're like, I don't know what. Just my little boy, and you try to plead with him that cause. This is why it's so sweet to me. I need it. It's my little boy, my special job, my special thing, my this, my that, whatever it is in your life. And we plead with Jesus, we beg with Jesus, but Jesus, and we come to him like that. And yet that man, even knowing that he has a reputation of being so good and miracles, signs, and wonders, he says, go home. Without you? Like imagine that. I don't know about you, but if it was my little boy, I would kidnap him. I would, you know what I mean? Like, what wouldn't you do? He's obviously desperate. You're coming with me one way or another. How much is it going to cost? What do I have to give you? I will work for you. I will follow you. I will give my whole life. If you just do this, I will commit everything to you. What wouldn't he do? My little boy, he's desperate. And yet Jesus says, I'm not going with you. And he says, go home. He gives him the good news, your son's going to live. And he's like, but would we be content with that? No, come with me. No, your son's going to live. No, yeah, but come with me. I heard you touch them when you heal them. I heard this is how you do it every time you heal them. I can imagine him going home. Now it says that he believed him and took him at his word, but I can imagine if it was me going home pretty defeated. Like, come on. The miracle didn't happen. He didn't come with me. He's not holding my hand as we're going. He's not going home with me. I don't have the assurance and the confidence that it's going to happen because it didn't happen right away. I couldn't move him. I couldn't move Jesus. You ever been in a place where it feels like I couldn't move Jesus? And I begged and I pleaded and I made my case for my little boy and I couldn't move him? And he says, here's the word, go home. Come on, this is real world Christianity here. This is the stuff that really stinks and is hard to deal with. And if that was me, boy, I'd be going home imagining, what am I going to tell my wife? I couldn't bring him. I'm sorry. Is my son even going to be alive when I make it home? I failed. My faith somehow failed. This guy named Jesus doesn't actually do what he says he does because he told me to go home. I mean, imagine being him. That is so difficult. But it reminds me of at work all day long, it's just a series of, Mr. John, can I? Mr. John, can you? Mr. John, can you unlock can you do this for me? Can you, Mr. John, can you? And when you have a house of 7 kids, and that's going on all day long, I cannot answer all of their requests at once. It's impossible, right? I mean, how could I? How could any parent? If you have more than one kid, you know what it's like. How could you answer all the requests at one shot? But the requests keep coming. Mr. John, but I need to. But it's so important. Mr. John, but I really need to. I had a girl trying to download music. She's like, Mr. John, literally, Mr. John. And I'd be like, okay, Mr. John. And it was just like a parrot. I'd say, Mr. John. And that's going on all day long. Now, what the kids understand after enough times where I, answer some needs, I'll say, listen, I will get to you in one moment, but I need you to wait. And guess what? They take me at my word. And they go on playing, they go on watching something, and they relax as if I gave it to them. Okay? It's the kind of trust that says, he gave me his word, I can relax. And they go on doing what they were doing. They don't stop life, they don't freeze, they don't get stuck in a place that says, but Mr. John. They don't stay there. And the kids who trust you when they say, sweetheart, we will do that today. I will not tell you when we can do that, but I give you my word, we will do that today. And guess what? They won't even bring it up again. And they will continue on their day like everything's normal, trusting I'll get to them and I'll say, let's do it. Let's go do this, let's go this. I told you, I promised you we'd talk. Now we're going to talk. Now, is that any less that I didn't give it to him right away? No. But do they have to take me at my word sometimes? Yeah. And what happens when you can't take somebody at their word? I'm begging and I'm pleading and I'm on your case and I'm knocking on your door and I'm being super annoying and I feel like I have to do it myself and get your attention. And it's just frustrating. It's frustrating to live like that and to not get your way like that. Especially consider a boss, a teacher, anybody like that where they were just not like that. And I have to fend for myself and I can't trust when they say, yeah, we'll have a meeting about that. Yeah, I'll look into that they'll actually do it. It can be super frustrating. But this is what this guy had to do. He didn't get a no, right? He didn't get a no. He didn't get what he wanted when he wanted it, but he didn't get a no. Instead, what he got was Jesus' word that something would happen. It's not what he wanted at the time. It's not ideal, and it didn't, it's not plan A. And it wasn't immediate. But he believed and took him at his word enough to continue and go back home. Again, if I was this guy, Jesus, I'm going to be outside your hotel. I'm going to be calling you every 45 minutes. I'm going to be driving you nuts. And you know how many Christians today do that? And how many believers? And I've been there, done that. I'm going to drive you nuts until you do it. And I will not move on with my life or my day until you do this. But instead, this man who is not a believer in Christ took him at his word, and it says believed in his word and took him at his word and what? Went back home. So when I don't get my way when I approach Jesus in prayer, when it's not solved immediately, do I have enough faith to go on my way taking him at his word? Do I have that kind of faith? And I ask myself, and I challenge myself with that. Would I have responded like this guy? And some days it's a definite no. Most of the days it's a definite no, if we're going to be honest. We just aren't raised like that in church, that his word is not enough, and No, we need the instant. And the challenge is taking Jesus at his word and not his miracles, his provision, his instantaneous. Not at his power, but at his word. And that is the challenge. That is the challenge for all of us. So let's continue the story. He takes him at his word and he starts going home. In John 4:51, when he, the unnamed official, when he was still a distance from Capernaum, back in his house, his servants met him on the road and told him the good news. Your son is healed, he's alive. And overjoyed, the father asked his servants, well, when did my son begin to recover? Well, yesterday, they said, at 1 p.m. And all at once his fever broke, and now he's well. Then the father realized that it was at that very same hour that Jesus spoke the words to him. Your son will live and not die. So from that day forward, the man and all of his family and servants believed. So picture that. You're going home. I don't know if this is going to work. Imagine all the scenarios running through your head. And before you even reach home, here comes Felipe, or whoever your servant is. And here comes Felipe, a comfortable face, a familiar face. And you, I don't know about you, but my first gut is he's about to give me the bad news. Right? Come on. Like, oh boy, here we go. When did he die? And instead he comes and says, I've got the best news ever. Suddenly, his fever broke. And he's alive and he's well. And you got met on the road with good news. And of course he asked, well, when did this happen? And coincidentally, it was the moment that Jesus gave me his word, the process started. The moment he gave me the word, the process started. Not the moment he saw his son. The moment Jesus gave the word, when he couldn't see his son, behind the scenes, it began to recover. You get that? He began to recover. It says the fever broke and he began to become well. And he couldn't see it for a second. But boy, just at the moment he spoke his word, that's when it happened. When did I get to go to watch Shrek? When was that realized? The moment, not at night at 10 o'clock because I was at the theater. It was the moment he told me, we're going to Shrek. That was the moment I had it confirmed. That was the moment I got the answer. Not the moment I was actually sitting in the theaters. The moment that I got my answer was the moment he gave me his word. And so then the same thing happened here. And so imagine him coming home and his wife is like, you're not going to believe it. I don't know what happened. What happened? And then imagine him going and talking to his son, the son who is about to die, the son who's not a believer in Christ. Dad, what happened? Well, you remember that man we heard about? Yeah, what did he do? He didn't come. No. But son, he gave me a promise. He gave me a word. And the moment he gave me the word, son, you got better. You got better. Imagine growing up as that boy whose life was saved at the word of a man not even in the room, in the same city as him, but by the word of the Savior. Imagine being that boy, taking Christ at his word. Imagine when he held the Bible. Imagine when he held the word in his hands, what he wouldn't do or could not believe for. What wouldn't he take Jesus at his word for? Because a man who spoke and gave his word saved his life. Ooh, that's so cool. I wish I was that boy. Wow. What a knowledge and intimacy with God that it was that moment. And not only that, but he was one of the only few people who Jesus didn't have to touch, that's recorded, to heal him. Yeah, that was me. I was one of those guys. That's wild. That's wild. Into a family of people who didn't even really believe. The Father didn't bring back a miracle, but he brought back Jesus' word. And that was enough. That was enough. Most of the time, not every time, I wish we could live in a perfect world, but most of the time, good news is waiting for those who take Jesus at his word. It's on the road. It's waiting for us on the road. If we continue, we'll see that. We'll be interrupted. There will be that good news and whatever that may be. But for some, unfortunately, that road back to home, to Capernaum, to that thing that's on the line, is longer than 20 miles. Maybe it's 20 years. Maybe it's 5 years. Maybe it's been 4 months. Maybe it's been, I don't know, you fill it in. Maybe that road there back home is a long time. And you say, yeah, John, take Jesus as word and continue on. Don't get stuck. Yeah, I've been on that road home for a long, long time. Keep going. That messenger could be just the next day or the next day. And he's going to come and interrupt you with some good news because you took him at his word. Unfortunately, so many times we get stuck waiting in a place for miracles that we don't go on the road and get the good news because we can't take him at his word. So we get stuck, no, Jesus, but Jesus, but Jesus, but Jesus, but Jesus. And we can't continue on our way home. We can't continue with life. We can't move on until we have that miracle because his word's not enough for us. So we get stuck in life because of it. But which took more faith for the man? To ask Jesus or to walk away from him? Think about it. Which took more faith? To ask Jesus for the miracle, to approach him for the miracle, or to walk away believing, it says, in his word that it's going to happen, and to walk away confidently? Which takes more faith? We like to paint it's the faith that gets an instant miracle and they got healed right away and they did all those things right away. But I'd like to argue that it takes just the same amount of faith to walk away without the immediate answer in just his word. We can't lose that side of it. We can't lose that coin of it. All right? Because good news is waiting on that road. That messenger is waiting on that road. We have to take him at his word. Good illustration of this, all right? A impala, those weird horn, kind of African weird things, can jump at a height of 10 feet and can jump as high as 10 feet and cover 30 feet. Okay? That's crazy jumping skills. All right? This thing can launch high and far. Yet, even with that capability, these things don't jump out of a zoo's 3-foot wall. You can literally keep them in its area, whatever you call it at a zoo, in the enclosure, with a 3-foot wall. Again, it can jump 10 feet and go 30 feet. Yet, a little itty-bitty 3-foot wall can keep those guys in an enclosure. Isn't that wild? And why can't they jump? Why don't they escape when they very easily can? It's because they won't jump somewhere they can't see where they'll land. They just won't do it. If they can't literally see where I'm going to land, I won't jump. And so these things that have all the capability of jumping further and faster beyond their barriers live life in an enclosure for their whole lives when they could easily make the jump just because they can't see where they might land. Isn't that wild? But what a perfect picture for us. So many times when we have to take Jesus at his word, that feels like that little 3-foot enclosure. Yeah, but I don't know where it's going to land. But it didn't happen right away. You just gave me your word. I didn't get the miracle. I just got the Bible. I didn't get the instant. I just got your scriptures, your promises in here. And I don't know where I'm going to land. So boy, I can live my whole life in the enclosure waiting for the provision. Feed me, feed me, feed me, like they do. Feed me, I'm comfortable. Feed me, feed me, feed me. And a 3-foot wall of trust keeps you from jumping further and faster out of the enclosure, on the way home to the good news. But this is us. This is us when we don't know, like the Father, going home, leaving Jesus and having the faith to say, I don't know where I'm going to land, but I believe you, and I'll jump past that little wall. I'll jump past, I didn't get it instantly. I'll jump on the other side of the coin of faith that says, I'm going to walk and make it. That's us. Don't live life in that enclosure. Don't live life limited by the 3-foot wall. Instead, jump further, jump faster. And that's why I believe the Bible is full of promises with languages like, and Jesus healed all of them. The Bible would be a whole lot easier, and Christianity in general would be a lot easier if they included more, like some. He healed many, a few. Wouldn't it be easier if that's what it says? Because then we wouldn't put our hopes such up. And Jesus healed a few of the people in the. No, it says, and all of their sick, and all of their oppressed, and the Bible's full of these promises. And the healing is not for, and some things are covered by the blood. It's all things are covered by the blood. Why is that language in there? To stretch us to jump. Because I'm included in whatever that is then. So we have the word right here. We have the word every single day. What if we actually, like that boy who held the Bible in his hands, how different would he read the Bible than you and I read it today? And what if we lived like that boy who could take Jesus at his word from that day forward? How much different would life be? How many messengers on the road would interrupt us? Monthly, daily, in all areas of our life. Amen?